Greetings and welcome to another Tomorrow's World webcast. My name is Wallace Smith and it's very good to have you here. Actually, I'm very grateful for the article that I'm going to be talking about today. It was given to me by someone else. I didn't notice it myself. It's from military.com. It was written by Richard Sisk and is dated October 12th, 2015. The title is Women Will Likely Have to Register for the Draft, Army Secretary Says. It deals with a discussion with Army Secretary John McHugh, the Secretary of the Army for the United States. Let me just read a little bit. It says, if your objective is true and pure equality, then you have to look at all aspects of the roles of women in the military, McHugh said, and registration for the draft will be one of those things that will have to be considered. McHugh said draft registration was not a subject to be decided by the services or the Department of Defense and will ultimately have to be dealt with by Congress. He expected a, quote, pretty emotional debate and discussion. And I would have to say, I hope it is a pretty emotional debate and discussion. You know, when it comes, at least in America, to women in the military, I know that there's a lot of nations out there that do have women in their military, and we certainly do. But the draft is another matter entirely. I know when it comes to this issue, there's a lot of discussion about can they serve in the military just as well as a man? Can they carry a load just as well as a man? Can they do as many pull-ups? Can they do as many sit-ups? And I'm not saying those aren't important issues to be discussed. They are. At the same time, there's a so much more vital question: should women serve in the military? No one seems to be asking that question anymore. You know, if you go back, if you think of the Titanic, I don't mean the movie Titanic, I mean the actual boat Titanic. Or even better yet, actually, I'd like to talk about a different boat, which a lot of people don't know about today anymore. It used to be an example taught to British boys and girls and American boys and girls, and that is the example of the HMS Birkenhead. The HMS Birkenhead sank in 1852. Sometimes it's a story it's a little hard for me to talk about. I get a little emotional myself. It was the subject of a famous poem by Rudyard Kipling on the matter concerning the Birkenhead drill. And anyway, it sank in 1852. There were 643 on board. 193 of them survived its sinking. The rest of them died. It was military men, British military men, and their wives and children. And it was in danger of sinking in shark-infested waters. They weren't sure. They put the ladies and the children in lifeboats. There weren't really enough life rafts, much like the Titanic, but they put them in their lifeboats and set them out away from the ship as the situation was examined and they tried to figure out a course of action. It eventually became obvious and clear that the ship was going to sink. And so the men had a really difficult decision. There was a thought, well, maybe we should just swim for the lifeboats as fast as we can with the women and children and try to scramble into them. And it was decided we can't do that. To do that posed a serious risk of accidentally overturning the boats and then dumping women and children into the water and then exposing women and children to risk. And so the men on the boat chose to stay in their ranks, go down into shark-infested waters, and just simply take their chances, then risk the life of a single woman or child. It's actually the origin of the phrase, the naval phrase, women and children first. It set the standard for our behavior. How far have we come from that kind of standard when we understood that was the role of men? It was to protect, it was to serve women and to serve children. To the point now when we think about fighting our wars, we want to draft women into it as well. The whole concept that there are beautiful and distinct purposes for man and woman in society, really in the family, is evaporating before our eyes. You know, in the Bible, the Apostle Peter made a statement in 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 7. He said, husbands likewise deal with them, speaking of wives, deal with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life. It didn't mean weaker in mental faculties or anything like that. It just meant in terms of physically weaker, and that as a man, you should remember that and honor her appropriately. If anything, it says they're equal heirs to the grace of life. We've lost sight of that completely in our society. The idea that men and women have beautiful roles designed by God in the family that should be honored to bring out our best is just evaporating away. I think it is a shame. And I think the men of the Birkenhead would feel shame on our behalf. But when we ignore God's design in one area, it just spreads to all other areas of life. I hope that we'll take the time to think about issues like this before they press on us personally. And I do thank you for watching this webcast, and I hope you'll check out everything else we have to offer at tomorrowsworld.org.